quick acknowledgement of the smaller beings in the house. That we have actually a fur baby, and we have some little ones, and I just want to honor you and apologize because we were planning on having our kickoff for our, well, actually, we hadn't planned it for today, but we're going to have a youth and family program. So anybody who's interested, the gentleman up there with the headphones on, his name is Brendan. You can talk to him after the service, and I just want you to know that he's heading it up, and just want to welcome you, especially for the little ones as well, and that they're hanging out there with us today as the big people. So let's give some more love to Shelley, first of all. So I want to begin with a short story. There was a nursery school teacher who knew that 4th of July was coming up. So she said, I think it's time to teach the little ones about patriotism. And what she said was, we live in a great country. One of the major things we can be happy about is that in this country, we are all free. And a little boy, 4-year-old boy named Johnny, walks up to her from the back of the class, puts his hands on his hips, and he said, I'm not free, I'm 4. Right? Well, here's the truth. Little Johnny, he was 4, and he was free. He was free to speak, and without fear. He was just going to say what it was, and he had no fear, no hesitation, any sort. The question is, do we have that same free spirit to be able to speak as we want to without fear of being ridiculed, rejected, put down, laughed at, told we can't do that, we can't say that? Do we have that same amount of freedom? Before I move into the talk more, I am free to speak about something that I spoke about last Sunday. For those of you who are here and for those that haven't been, I spoke about something that I had been learning about at the Unity Convention. And it had to do with foods that we eat. And I started to realize that I might be making some choices to become more vegan-like, which is pretty radical, to be honest. Now, I want to make a formal apology to you because I did not mean for you to know that I wanted everyone to be on that same program. Every one of us is free to have the experience of what works for us in our body and in our lives. And so one of the interesting things about being a minister is that I get to speak things, and sometimes they're not taken in the way that I meant them. So what I mean is for everyone to follow their own path. And I apologize if you heard something different, that I wanted us all to become vegans. I don't even know if I can do it. But that is just my personal. So my apologies. And here's the thing, freedom is we're free to say things, and then we're free to think about what we said. We're also free to talk to me specifically if it's an issue. May or may not be something that I'll change, but we have freedom. And how much of that freedom are we exercising? How much of the little Johnny runs around as that 4-year-old who's totally free to just be themselves without apology? I have a shirt that actually says unapologetically inclusive, and it's a Unity t-shirt. Love it. So I think that we all have that little Johnny part of us that would like to be just as free as we can be. I have a 4-year-old self who just wants to play and not do big people stuff. Anybody? Okay, come on. I know you probably have that 4-year-old who goes, do I have to do big people stuff today? I want to be free. I want to be that freedom. And yet, what happens is that we grow up. Babies are free. they scream and cry, and they're not going to do anything except be themselves. And then we get taught that there's things that you're not allowed to do. And, there are some limits that we need to have in order to be safe in the world and to work well with each other. So there are those. However, I think sometimes we become so limited in our expression and experience. People who have said perhaps to us things like, "You can't do that. Who do you think you are? Anybody?" And you're too pretty. You're not pretty enough. You're not smart enough. You're not big enough. You're not smart enough. You're not something enough. We get these messages, and so we start to, instead of being free and open, we start to box in. We become boxed in to this experience that we're meant to be free. We're born to be free. And so learning how to dismantle the box to be more free, and yet there are limits and limitations that we must have in order to be safe and to work well together. I want to speak to you about the definition of freedom. First definition is freedom is the power to act, speak, or think as one wants, without hindrance or restraint, without being controlled or limited. Again, without hindrance or restraint, without being controlled or limited. Definition 2, the condition of not being in prison or in captivity. Definition 3, the condition of being free of restraints. Now, what I find very interesting is you can't know freedom without its opposite. Each one of those definitions speaks of things like bondage, prison, limitation, restraints, confinement, imprisonment, servitude, and slavery. Isn't that interesting? That you can't know freedom without knowing its opposite. So, we need to break free from the fear. Fear can be false evidence appearing real, or facing everything and rising. To look at something that's fearful and determine, is it true or is it not true? Ernest Holmes, who is a New Thought mystic and pioneer of New Thought, who's got the same teachings basically as Charles Fillmore, who's a co-founder of Unity, speaks in what is called the Science of Mind text on page 1 of this very thick book about freedom. Ernest says, the divine plan is one of freedom. Bondage is not God-ordained. Freedom is the birthright of every living soul. All of us instinctively feel this. The truth sets us free. The truth points to freedom under law, which means that there are things that you need to follow, but there's freedom. We need that masculine and feminine. The masculine is about the box, the things that are linear. And then there's freedom of the divine feminine within it. That's my part. That wasn't what Ernest says. Thus, the inherent nature of mankind is forever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom. We do well to listen to this inner voice, for it tells us of a life wonderful in its scope, a love that is beyond our wildest dreams, and a freedom that the soul craves. So I have a story, and it has to do with elephants. So do you know what it is that keeps an elephant, a circus elephant, from breaking free? The circus elephant is a 5,000-pound kilo animal that gets a chain wrapped around a collar around its leg with a chain and a little wooden peg stuck in the ground. Now, this enormous animal which has the ability to uproot a rooted tree, the animal that can push or pull a loaded railway car and can snap a telephone pole in half, is stopped by a little wooden peg and a chain in the ground. Why is that? Well, it's because its trainer, when it was a baby, had the same training. It had a collar on its leg, it had a chain, it had a 3-foot iron stake pounded in the ground. That little baby elephant tried and tried again to get away and move away and be free, but it would get stopped by this chain and this stake in the ground. Sometimes it would cut into its leg and it created pain. Well, after so much time, that baby elephant gives up. It realizes it's fruitless, it's futile to even try to break away. It gives up. 10 years later, that 100-pound-kilo baby elephant is now 5,000-pound-kilo elephant. It could easily pull that chain out of the ground, and now it doesn't even have an iron stake. It has a little wooden peg. That elephant remembers the pain that it felt as a baby, and it doesn't try to break away. It remembers its limitations and knows that it can only move as far as the chain would let it. It doesn't matter that that stake was replaced by a wooden peg. The elephant's belief prevails. The elephant's belief prevails. And if you think about it, aren't we also like that circus elephant? We have an incredible power within us. We have it to take on the world and build dreams. But we have our own chains and our own pegs, right? Past experiences, imprints, and impressions from our past people that have told us things, our experiences have told us that we are limited, and we give up. We give up on our dreams. We can't do that. And it's those limiting beliefs that begin to be the block from our freedom. Nothing can hold me back except what is in my own mind. It is about consciousness. That is what we teach at Unity and in New Thought. So the question is, what's holding you back? What belief? And most of our beliefs, here's the thing, they're subconscious beliefs. We have experiences as children, as 4-year-olds, and those beliefs start to be the experience because we believe something, and so everything fits in that box. And pretty soon, we don't even realize it. How many of us sometimes react, not from the situation, but because it's similar to a past situation? Right? We do, because we've got these ingrained beliefs. And the parts of the work that I do as a spiritual counselor is to work with myself first and with others to find out what is the belief that is in my subconscious and bring it to the table, bring it to the light and go, that's not even true. But I can't do anything with it when it's under the ground. I bring it up, look at it, and then I go, that belief is not the truth. What is the truth? And I can rise up and create a new belief. That's the good news. We can create new beliefs. We have to identify what has been. So I'm going to take you through a little process, if you're willing to do so. So if you'd, first of all, just close your eyes. Take a breath in. Let it go. And now I want you to imagine a life of freedom. To know that there is no lack or limitation. See yourself as being completely free. What does freedom feel like and look like How does your body feel to be completely free? How is your mind knowing only freedom? Good. So now, just move into another thought. What is some place in your life that you would like to experience more freedom? What area or thing or place in your life would you like to be more free in? Let that come to mind so you can identify where you would like to be more free. Good. And now that you've identified that, what is the belief attached to that area? What is the limiting thought or belief? Just identify what comes to mind, just observe. Because there's always a belief attached. And so now, I invite you to return to that state of feeling freedom, completely free. Return to that vibration of feeling your freedom. And I want you to put your arms around the limiting blocking belief. I want you to imagine the sun shining down and dissolving from that state of freedom, the truth of freedom, dissolving the limiting belief that there is now no limiting belief. It has dissolved into the native nothingness from which it came. So breathe. And now, I'd like you to make a declaration, an affirmation, something that would be the truth for you. What do you declare as your new freedom? Very good. So I invite you, when you're ready, to open your eyes and to know that we are declaring our freedom. This is the ABCD process that you just went through. First, to be aware of what freedom is. A stands for awareness. Be in the vibration of freedom. B, go to that belief, that blocking belief is your B. You've got to recognize the belief that is blocking you. C, we connect that freedom, that state of freedom, to the B, the blocking belief, and we dissolve it. So C is that connection, taking that freedom and dissolving the blocking belief. And D, we make a declaration. We declare a truth for you. It's like the Pledge of Allegiance. When you make a pledge, you commit to something. And so, a little Pledge of Allegiance trivia. Who knows what year that the Pledge of Allegiance came out? Oh, good. Everybody knows. I won't tell you then. It was 1892. 1892. Back in Charles Fillmore and Myrtle's day. It was written, the Pledge of Allegiance was written in August of 1892 by a socialist minister, Francis Bellamy. It was originally published in the Youth Companion on September 8th, 1892. And Bellamy had hoped that the pledge would be used by citizens in any country. I think this is very interesting. The original form was, I pledge allegiance to my flag and the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It was in 1923 that the words, the flag of the United States of America, was added. And in 1954, in response to the communist threat of the times, President Eisenhower encouraged Congress to add the words, under God, creating the 31-word pledge we say today. And if you care to, you can say it with me. I bet the kids know this one. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Isn't that interesting for those who... So I'm going to encourage you to perhaps create your own Pledge of Allegiance. And Reverend David Alt, who is one of my all-time favorite ministers, he created this Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to read portions of it in my close. There is also copies of this on a pink piece of paper out there in case you want to have a copy for yourself. And just listen to these. Reverend David Alt, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to breaking the barriers of my humanness. I recognize that my time on this planet is precious and limited. Every day is a canvas on which I can create. Every day is an opportunity for me to move in the direction of my dreams and the expanded vision I feel inside. By setting aside my petty grievances, past mistakes, righteous anger, and my broken story, I pledge to move forward and embrace the experience of freedom right here and right now. I pledge allegiance to the expression of my spiritual honesty. I fully own the fact that my presence here in this body and on this earth is a celebration of uniqueness and importance. I am a creation of life, of a higher power. My reason for being here matters in the grand plan of life. I walk the path of destiny with conviction, purpose, and grace. I pledge allegiance to wise discernment, knowing when to speak and when to remain quiet, knowing when to comfort and when to leave alone, when to intervene or when to avoid interfering. I pledge allegiance to the freedom from comparison. Nobody does that, I know. I once and for all lay down my wearisome, stale beliefs of unworthiness and not being good enough. I am forever evolving, growing, and learning. I now choose opportunities to let my voice be heard, to let my light shatter the darkness of futility so that every personal dream is experienced. I pledge allegiance to those who have gone before me, the ancestors whose courage, sacrifice, and conviction still live in my bones. I honor the privileges that are given to me today because of the sweat from their pioneering efforts and the fortitude of their convictions. I give thanks for my responsibility in creating the same for future generations. I pledge allegiance to the sacredness of laughter, knowing that the greatest healing force that exists vibrates from the holy and irreplaceable gift of humor. I allow humor, joy, and eruptions of laughter to make their home in my heart. I pledge allegiance to love that has no agenda. I no longer choose to give for what I might get, to manipulate in order to control, to abandon before I can be abandoned, to tolerate because there are no seemingly other options. I choose to love as a way of being. My pledge is for freedom. To stand for freedom, to stand for love, and to be that freedom and to be that love. What's your pledge? Namaste.